Good morning. My name is Joyce Shear, and I'm a senior here at Asbury, and I'm a part of the Zealous class. I'm humbled to introduce to you my roommate, Whitney Ward. In order for you to better understand who Whitney is, I believe it is appropriate for me to tell you a little bit about Whitney from my perspective. After having an opportunity to get to know Whitney over the past 2 years, I would describe her in 5 words: humble, strong, considerate, brave, and determined. And God has been faithful to reveal himself to her in each of these 5 areas of her life. And God has been just that, faithful. God has been faithful in her humility. When she has had to leave me for days or weeks on end for health reasons, she has never once complained. God has been faithful to give her strength when she has been weak. God has been faithful to give her consideration to put up with me as a roommate. Let's just say getting hit on the head with my cell phone in the middle of the night when our beds are bunked, and that's happened twice now. God has been faithful to give her determination when she's had to conquer life-threatening circumstances. God has been faithful to give her determination to conquer life-threatening circumstances, and God has been faithful to give her bravery when she has had to face many health trials. God is a faithful God. May you see his faithfulness through my beautiful roommate, Whitney Ward.
Good morning. There we go, got it. It's an honor to be speaking to you today. I'm as well a part of the Zealous class. Woo! So when I was praying about what God would have me share with you, he told me to simply share what he's taught me throughout the years. And that is, he is so faithful. The God I serve comes to me when I don't have the strength to come to where he is. And even when I don't see or understand it, God has a plan bigger than I could ever imagine. But perhaps the biggest thing he's taught me is that when I think something is impossible, he has the power to make it possible. And I hope you see that through my story today. But the biggest way he comes to where we are is when he saves us. And I'd like to share my salvation story with you. When I was 5, I heard the term saved, but I really didn't understand what it meant. But I thought this was something my older sister had not done yet, and I was going to beat her to it. So I got saved, but I didn't know what I was doing. But when I was 10, I was at church in a revival, and it's like I heard God speak to me clearly for the first time, saying, Whitney, I want you to get saved because you know you need to, because I want you to. So if you think I'm short now, you should have seen me when I was 10. I was so scared, I didn't want to go to the altar. So I went back to the women's restroom, knelt down by the toilet, and asked Jesus into my heart. I add new meaning to the saying, God can save you anywhere. But I am so glad that I trusted Jesus at a young age because he was going to get me through some tough times in my life. From infancy to age 5, I was fairly healthy and active, but when I turned 6, all that changed. One morning, I woke up with excruciating pain in my knees, and I could not walk for several hours. Finally, I was able to walk, but it was with a severe limp. The next night, I spiked a high fever, and I was rushed to Children's Hospital. It was determined I had a condition called septic arthritis. That was easily treated, but through this condition, they saw that my blood counts were not where they were supposed to be. And I remember being rushed from department to department, being tested for different diseases, all of which came back negative. Several doctor's appointments and tests later, it was determined I had a rare form of autoimmune hemolytic anemia. It's not life-threatening, but it's rare in the sense that I had so many different autoimmune disorders, different symptoms of them, and they could not pinpoint it to a specific one. I had the severe anemia, the chronic sinusitis, the arthritis. It just did not, and still to this day, does not make sense. So I went from being a fairly healthy, active girl to a girl who began sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day. I had to see doctors 3 or 4 times a month at Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. I had to take a monthly IV treatment to boost my immune system. I missed anywhere from 75 to 100 days of school from kindergarten to my senior year. I had to give up sports. I couldn't hang out with my friends anymore because I was so sick and tired. And I just felt like my life had just stopped and my friends were going on without me. And that was so hard to do, but God was so faithful and he got me through those tough times. Because I missed so many days of school, my school hired a tutor to teach me on the days I missed. But my classmates felt like I was getting special treatment. So when I was there, they made it horrible for me, and I felt so alone. And I remember asking my mom, will you just homeschool me and take me out? And she said, Whitney, I feel like you gotta fight this battle. I can't let you run away from your enemies. But as always, God will get you through, and he will be faithful. And she was right. He did get me through. He was faithful. And by his grace, I was able to graduate on time with a B+ average. But it wasn't going to be till much later that God revealed to me why I went through what I did in high school. When I graduated from high school, just like most of you, I wanted to go to college, get a job, and be normal for once. But with my condition, it wasn't going to be that simple. You see, by this time, I had multiple surgeries. I still had to see doctors multiple times a month. I had monthly IV treatment I had to take, but I had an interest in sign language. And I thought this was a job I could physically do. I would go to Ohio University Southern in Ironton, and I would commute. I would live at home, and I would get my certificate in deaf studies. And my sister also went to OU, so we could commute, and I just felt at peace with these decisions. But when I got to the upper level sign language courses, I realized that I could not do some of the signs because of the arthritis in my fingers. So I discussed it with one of my professors, and she agreed deaf studies wasn't for me. So I felt so hopeless, and I was once again searching for a direction. Ironically, my parents, being Asbury grads, had always talked to my sister about going to Asbury, but they never did with me because of my physical limitations. But as I was struggling with this new direction, I felt God was saying, Whitney, I want you to go to Asbury. And I began telling him, I can't go to Asbury. I can't even finish my degree. I'm sick all the time. I see doctors all the time. I have monthly IV treatment. How could I possibly go away and live on my own? But he said, just wait, you will go. I was like, okay, well, whatever. Well, from there, things actually went from bad to worse. Because I was taking the IV treatment, my veins were tired from the poking, and it actually took my nurses multiple times to access my veins. So my doctor came to me and said it was time to get a port. A port is surgically placed into one of your veins, and it allows easy access to your veins, every IV stick, or blood draw. So a CAT scan was done to see where they would place this port, and my doctor came back with some strange news. My veins and arteries were not positioned as they should be in my chest. So one, they didn't even know if they could put a port in. Two, they didn't know if it would work properly. And three, the most common concern with my autoimmune disorder was the high risk of infection. But they said, Whitney, ultimately it's your decision. And I asked God what to do. And he said, Whitney, I want you to go to Asbury. Yes. And I felt like he was not listening to what I was being told. And I just asked him to take this desire away because it just hurt too much and I knew it wouldn't be possible. Well, the desire grew stronger, so I talked to my parents, and they're like, let's just pray about this. Maybe God will open up the doors. But I think we all thought, how is God going to do this with her physical limitations? How will it ever work? Well, a couple weeks later, I had a doctor's appointment. And this appointment was supposed to be a couple months later, before. And I'm explaining the situation of the port to this doctor. And I said, I just don't feel like I have any other option, so I think I have to do it. And he looked at me and said, no, Whitney, you're the perfect candidate. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, there's a new treatment that was just approved here at Children's. It's a sub-Q version of your treatment, meaning it's given in the fatty tissue of your stomach instead of your veins. And with this treatment, it's given weekly instead of monthly, so it makes your body more consistent and it cuts down on your times of being sick. By this time, I was like, sign me up, not being sick anymore, I'll do it. But then he looked at me and said, Whitney, I haven't even told you the best part. Once we train you how to do this treatment, you can do it wherever you want or need to. And because it will cut down on your times of being sick, it will therefore cut down on your times of going to the doctor. And me and my mom just looked at each other, and it was like we knew a door was opening. And it was like God said, you see, Whitney, if you're obedient to me, you trust my timing, nothing is impossible for me. And that door did open, and I was able to visit Asbury in the fall of 2008. And then in the fall of 2009, I became an Asburian. But it's not always been easy since I've been here. I've had the same struggles as you all have had, trying to get a schedule, get good grades, get my laundry done. But I've also had many times of being sick where I've had to leave campus to be hospitalized. I've had to go home just to regain my strength. And to date, I've had 24 surgeries, with number 25 scheduled in December. I'm followed by 5 specialists at Children's Hospital and another set of 4 specialists at the National Institute of Health at Bethesda, Maryland. But God's been so faithful to send me constant reminders that I am where I'm supposed to be, through the support and consideration of my professors, the wonderful friendships He's allowed, and the care and concern of my family support system here, Bert, Cheryl, Allison, Aaron, and Josh Jones. He and the roommate He's given me in Joy for the past 2 years, He's always come to where I am and proven His faithfulness to me. During my first year here, I felt I would just do well just by going to classes and just doing that. I didn't think I could do anything extra. But ironically, my junior year, I was asked to be the assistant editor / writer of the collegiate staff, and that was a wonderful experience. And leading into my senior year, I had the desire to be an SLA, but I just didn't know if I could physically do the job and commit the time to it. But in the summer, when I thought all the SLA positions were taken, the doors opened for me to be the SLA of Sarah Johnson. And through this opportunity, I've been given a wonderful hall to be a part of and have gained so many wonderful friends I know I will have for life. So I go from being lonely and sick all the time and not being able to be involved in anything extra to being able to come to Asbury. And at the beginning of this semester during SLA training, I was in the cafeteria and I was catching up with friends and I was walking back to my seat. It was like God tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Whitney, this is why you went through what you did in high school. You see, you could have been popular and been involved in extracurricular activities, but it wouldn't have meant as much as it does now. You see, the appreciation I have for these wonderful opportunities I've been given, the wonderful relationships I have, are so much more appreciated because of the past heartache." There's a phrase in a song that I like that says, "God prepared me for such a time as this." And I'm so thankful that He works everything for our good, and He's faithful to do so. And it was in that moment that God proved once again a promise to me in one of my favorite Bible verses, and that is Isaiah 40:31. "But those that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." And it was like God was saying, "Whitney, I've watched you as you've gone through these difficult times. And because you chose to believe that I'm a trustworthy God and I will get you through, this year is going to be your best year yet." And so far, it has been. One of my favorite songs is entitled, "God's Been Good in My Life," and the second verse and chorus describes my life perfectly. It says, "Times replayed, and I can see that I've cried some bitter tears, but I felt your arms around me as I faced my greatest fears. You see, I've had more gains than losses, and I felt more joy than hurt, as your grace rolled down upon me undeserved. For God's been good in my life. I feel blessed beyond my wildest dreams as I go to sleep each night. And even though I've had some hard times, I wouldn't trade them if I could. 'Cause through it all, God's been good." So you see, I wouldn't change my life at all, because it was during those hard times that I saw just how faithful my God was. And when I didn't have the strength to come to where He was, He'd come to me. Now, I'm a creative writing major, but I'm so glad I'm not writing my story, because what I thought was impossible, God deemed as possible. As the worship band comes up here, I would just encourage you to let go of whatever you're holding on to and let God write your story, because He is a trustworthy God, and He will come to where you are. And remember, even when you can't see or understand it, God has a plan bigger than you could ever imagine. And it is my prayer today that you will truly learn and believe that with God, all things are possible. Thank you.